It is unfortunate that many people and Christians will have spent a large part of their lives climbing the ladder of success only to discover at the end that it was leaning against the wrong wall. In an effort to meet the standards of our world system and what it calls success, many will have missed the purposes of God. They will have perhaps been very great in their careers and in their education and with their resources, but will stand before God never having finished the work that God had called them to do. What we call purpose or destiny, your divinely designed reason for being once you become a Christian. The reason why we were not raptured at the moment of conversion was that God left us here for the achievement and the accomplishment of a kingdom purpose. Unfortunately today, it is easy to get caught up in the wrong purpose. The purposes of people, possessions, paychecks, power, popularity, and maybe we sprinkle a little piety in to make us feel a little better. It is easy to live the life that we live without the right end game in mind. Like the man who said, I was dying to finish high school so that I could go to college. I was dying to finish college so that I could start my career. I was dying to get married so that I could start a family. I was dying for those kids to become 18 so that they could leave. I was dying to retire only to discover now I'm just dying. And the sense of purpose is gone. That leads us to our two chapters today, chapters 3 and 4 of the book of Esther. Because it is in these chapters that the greatest statement and the most famous statement in the book is located in chapter 4, verse 14, when Mordecai asked her the question, have you not obtained royalty for such a time as this? Or as the King James says, have you not been called to the kingdom for such a time as this? So I want to explain to you, using the providential hand of God in the life of Esther, how you know when it's your time. You hear people talk about, it's my time, it's my season. And that's easy to say and quote, but how do you know when God has prepared you for the moment? That time that he has worked with you for through the good, the bad, and the ugly to bring you to a space of usefulness for his kingdom purposes. Well, chapter 4 opens up with a problem. Because we're told in chapter 3 opens up with a problem because we're told in chapter 3, verse 1, after these events, King Ahasuerus promotes Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and established his authority over the princesses who were with him, and all the king's servants who were at the king's gate bowed down and paid homage to Haman, but Mordecai neither bowed nor did he pay homage. Houston, we have a problem. Ahasuerus, the king, has decided to elevate a man named Haman. Haman is made the second most powerful person in the Medo-Persian Empire. And the king has said, I want there to be public recognition of the promotion that I've given to Haman, so I want everybody in the kingdom to bow. And so as everybody began to bow, then they came to one of the employees of the king named Mordecai. And they said, Mordecai, it's time to bow. Mr. Haman is coming down. Mr. Haman is passing through. Mordecai says, excuse me, but I can't do that. I can't bow and pay homage. I cannot worship him. I can respect him. I can, affirm him. But what you're asking me to do is bow down and pay homage. You're calling for an act of worship, and I can't do that. So Mordecai refuses. Houston, we have a problem. They want to know, verse 3, how are you transgressing the king's command? Let me put it in everyday language. How you not doing what the government told you to do? Because this is the king talking. This is governmental affairs. And they say, look, this is the government. We expect you to obey the government. Well, obeying the government is one thing. Worshiping and bowing to it, that's a whole nother ball game. And Mordecai says, I can't do that. They spoke to him daily, according to verse 4. They told Haman, there's this dude named Mordecai, and he's not going to bow, but let me tell you why he's not going to bow. He's a Jew. And them people over there, they've been taught by, their worldview that you do not bow, that is in worship, to men or to systems of men, governments, when they conflict with their belief system. And so this Mordecai is not going to bow. Haman, verse 5, was full of rage, ticked off. He said, well, not only am I going to kill verse 6, not only am I going to kill Mordecai, I'm going to kill all of his people. I'm going to do genocide against the Jews. Because I know all them people think like he think. So we're not going to have that, not under my rule. King Ahasuerus is giving me clout, and I'm not going to have anybody around here not recognizing my authority. So he's gone, and everybody like him is gone. We're going to get rid of the Jews. He brings the idea to the king, Ahasuerus, and he tells Ahasuerus, Mr. Ahasuerus, king, you got some people here who don't go with you. There's a certain people scattered, and they don't abide by your rules. They don't abide by your laws. Verse 8. And so he says, so king, we got to do something about these folk. So if it pleases the king, verse 9, what I want to do is I want to get rid of them. I want to exterminate them because they're going to be a headache for you. In fact, I want to get rid of these people so bad, verse 9, that I will pay you to help get rid of them 10,000 talents of silver. I'm going to give you a boatload of money just to get rid of these people, because these people are nothing but trouble. Because they're not going to bow. They're not going to submit to the government. They're not going to submit to the authority. So the king put his signet ring down, signed the law of Haman the Agagite. Let me pause. We're told a couple of times in this passage Haman's background. He's an Agagite. Now that may not mean much to you, but God doesn't waste words in his word. This has a history to it. You see, the Agagites came from Agag. Agag is found in 1 Samuel chapter 15, verses 1 to 23. Agag is head of the Amalekites, and the Amalekites were trying to destroy the Jews many years ago when Saul was king in 1 Samuel 15. God told Saul, I want you to go and I want you to destroy the Amalekites, and I want you to destroy the king Agag, because these folks are trying to kill you. But Saul thought he was too smart for God. And he decided, I'm not going to kill the king. I'm going to kill some of the stuff, but I'm not going to kill all of the stuff because we can use some of the stuff. So he disobeyed God. Agag was allowed to live longer, so his legacy was allowed to continue. So now we in Esther with the fruit of a root of a same problem that wasn't dealt with early. So some of us know what it is to have something we should have dealt with, wish we would have dealt with, and if we would have dealt with it, we wouldn't be dealing with this today. But because we didn't deal with it when we should have dealt with it, we wind up with the fruit of it continuing in our life and circumstance. So when it says that Haman was an Agagite, he's telling you he's part of a legacy of unaddressed sin, of unaddressed, fully dealing with something God told you to deal with long ago that you're now having to deal with the repercussions of. And so now, not only is Mordecai in trouble, the whole race of Jews is about to be exterminated. Okay, here's lesson number 1. You know it's your time. You know it's your time when God connects spiritual preparation with spiritual warfare. You see, Haman was an agent of the devil whose goal it is to thwart the purposes of God. In the Old Testament, it had to do with destroying the Jews. In the New Testament, it has to do with muting the effectiveness of the church, the people, representative people of God. And so in order to pull that off, Satan uses people and uses systems in order to destroy the program and promises and purposes of God. God had said, I'm going to build this people, protect this people. They are going to be my people because the Messiah is going to come through the Jews. And so all along the way, there's a theology of genocide and destruction trying to hinder the purposes of God. Whenever God is getting ready to use someone, they will have a battle to overcome. They will have spiritual warfare that will seek to destroy God's program and purpose in your life and in the life of others. Because as you'll see, it's not just about you. He's going to get rid of Mordecai and all of the Jews. Before David could be recognized to be the future king of Israel, he had to go through a battle first. He had to face Goliath. It wasn't until he defeated Goliath, spiritual warfare, since it was a battle between gods, that he began to emerge as preparation for kingship. But before God elevated him to ultimate purpose, he had to use him in spiritual battle. So spiritual battle is always a prerequisite to spiritual purpose. If you're not willing to demonstrate that you're willing to deal with the spiritual issues that Satan brings in your life to thwart your purpose and how God wants to use you for the benefit of others, then you're not ready to be realized and set free for your ultimate spiritual purpose. See, what God wants to know before he gives you spiritual responsibility is that he can trust you to use the spiritual when the going gets tough. He wants to know that the spiritual won't be thrown aside when the natural shows up. Because it's real easy when the natural shows up to get natural. It's easy when the natural shows up to go secular. But when the spiritual shows up, because there is a spiritual issue of thwarting the program of God, the question is, do you have insight enough to see what's happening spiritually so that you have foretaste enough to address it spiritually? So when God is going to give you your time, that is, the time to be released to your ultimate purpose, there will be a spiritual battle that you will have to not only fight, but that you will have to make your declaration known. And so now the Jews are about to be destroyed. The scribes in verse 12 send the word out. The edict goes out about the destruction of the Jews. Letters are sent in verse 13 by carriers to all the provinces to destroy, to kill, and annihilate all the Jews, young, old, women, children. But we're told that this was going to happen in a 12-month cycle. You see that in verse 7. You see that in verse 13. It says the 12th month. Let me just throw this in. If you look at verse 7, it says per, P-U-R-A. That is the lot. The lot. The lot is dice. Okay? Y'all know dice, right? Come on, don't act like y'all don't know dice. So Haman is shaking the dice to determine when he's going to destroy them. They came up 6 and 6, 12th month. So the dice got rolled. It didn't come up with 2 zeros. It didn't come up with 1 and 1. It came up with 6 and 6 because it's 12 months. You see, even when Satan rolls the dice, God loads them. Because God is so sovereign and providential, he controls the dice. So there is a 12-month window between the time of the declaration and the time of the execution. Whenever God creates a gap, when evil is about to occur, the gap is good news in a bad situation. Remember, he told Nineveh through Jonah, in 40 days, Nineveh would be destroyed. Why not just destroy them? Because there's a window. There's a window between judgment declared and judgment implemented. Whenever God creates a window, you better praise him. Because a window is an opportunity. It's called a grace window. It's a window where God's mercy and grace is still being allowed before destruction is implemented. So there is a 12-month window because God loaded the dice, gave them the maximum amount of months within a year to address the problem of satanic influence to bring about a destruction in God's people and on behalf of God's program. And so the saga continues of the providential hand of God. The edict is given. And when the edict is given, chapter 4, verse 1, when Mordecai learned that all that had been done, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, the garments of sorrow, and went out into the midst of the city and walked loudly and wailed loudly and bitterly. You could hear that man crying all over the place. Because when Satan is trying to do a number on you, he can bring you to tears. Many of us know what it is to have a spiritual warfare against us, and we're weeping and wailing because the pain is so deep and so great. He was out there loudly declaring hopelessness because of how bad things look. He went as far as the king's gate. That's the entrance to the king's palace. And no one was to enter the king's gate clothed in sackcloth. But there he was, mourning with great mourning, because we're told in verse 15 there was great confusion. You think you're a Jewish father sitting there with your family and you hear come across the evening news, all Jews are to be exterminated. There's panic in the city of Susa. And now everybody's wailing because it looks like a hopeless situation. Let me tell you something, never count God out, no matter how bad things look. Well, Esther finds out that her cousin is out there in sackcloth and ashes. She doesn't really know what's going on. And so she sends him clothes out there to get him dressed. He rejects the clothes. And so it now gets real interesting. She sends her servant, Hathach, out in verse 6 to Mordecai. And Mordecai told him all that had happened to him, the exact amount of money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasury for the destruction of the Jews. He sends word back to Esther. Gave a copy of the edict. And this is what he says to her in verse 8. That he might show Esther and inform her, and to order her to go to the king and employ his favor and to plead with him for her people. Mordecai says to Esther's servant, take the edict to Mordecai, take the edict to Esther, and tell Esther now to go to the king and tell him who you are. Remember, I told you don't tell him when he first brought you in. Don't tell him because there's an anti-Semitic atmosphere in this city. So you don't tell him. But girlfriend, honey bun, cuz, it's now time to come out the closet. It's now time to go public. It's now time to let it be known who you are and who your people happen to be. It's time. You know it's time for God to move you to your ultimate purpose. When he has given you a position that leverages influence for the advancement of his kingdom. He says, girl, you're not just here because you're pretty. You're pretty, but that's not why you're here. You're here because when you were pretty and didn't know what was going on, God knew this day was going to come. He doesn't use the name God, but it will be clear in a moment that's his frame of reference. God knew that this day was going to come. It's time. You've been set up for a situation. When God has positioned you to leverage influence for his kingdom purposes, let me put it another way. When your position in life allows you to leverage influence for the advancement of God's program and God's people. To put it another way, when he has blessed you to be a blessing. See, we got a problem today. We got a misunderstanding of blessing. We got people running around here, I'm looking for my blessing. Okay? That is a flawed approach to blessing because it's incomplete. Whenever you tell God, I want my blessing, period, you have prostituted the term. Because blessing is only blessing in the Bible when it can flow through you and not just to you. God told Abraham, I'm going to bless you, and through you, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. So whenever you go to God for a blessing, let him know that if he blesses to you, how it's going to flow through you so it can be a blessing to somebody else. God just doesn't move you out of South Dallas to North Dallas. He just doesn't get you out of a bicycle and move you to a Benz. He just doesn't keep you out of the Salvation Army thrift shop just so now that you can go to the most fabulous malls just so you can live large. He always wants to know how you're going to use the gifts, talents, skills, and resources he has given you to advance his kingdom program. And if there is little or no concern for his kingdom, you just cut off your blessing. In fact, you will watch your blessing become a curse because you're not using it for kingdom purposes as well as personal benefit. So he tells her, it's time. It's time for you to use your position, your influence, your resources, and you are now to leverage that in light of the spiritual issue. The problem is, if you don't see the spiritual, you don't see the opportunity. See, if all you're looking at is the physical, then you don't see what's happening behind the scenes in the spiritual. So you all shook up about what's happening in the physical because you don't know that there is a spiritual activity occurring behind the scenes. So she hears that she's supposed to go before the king. So she sends word back to Mort. Mort, verse 11, all the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces know that for any man or woman who comes to the king to the inner court who is not summoned, he has but one law, that he be put to death, unless the king holds out to him the golden scepter so that he may live. And I have not been summoned to come to the king for these 30 days. Mort, let me explain something. I need you to understand, cuz it's sort of like this. Me and the king have not been talking for 30 days. 30 days, we not, we on the outs with each other. He hasn't wanted me in his bed chamber. He's not talking to me. Because between chapter 2 and chapter 3 is 5 years. Because after 5 years, the marriage can go south. So it's 5-year marriage, and he's not all that impressed with her beauty anymore. Maybe she done picked up a few wrinkles in 5 years. I don't know. But whatever it was, for 30 days, he's not talking to sister. He's not talking to his wife. He's not talking to her. And he says, there's rule in this house. If you go in the king uninvited, and he does not hold out that royal scepter, it's over. It's over. You are put to death. So what you're asking, Mort, is for me to risk my career, life, economic stability, my crib. I'm living in the palace. You're asking me to put that on the line for y'all. See, it's no longer us. See, she a Jew too, but she ain't like them Jews back there. She ain't like them Jews still caught in a bad situation. She not like those Jews who still living in shabby houses. She's not like them Jews who still have to eke out a life with minimum income. She's not like those Jews who still have to catch the bus. She's not like those Jews who don't have multiple changes of clothes. She's not like those Jews who are still living in inferior housing, with inferior education, with inferior opportunity. She's not like those Jews. I used to be one of y'all. But I'm up here now. Now, I'm a Jew, but I'm a different Jew. I'm an upper class Jew. I'm a Sadidi Jew. I'm a successful Jew. I'm a Jew with a bank account. I'm a Jew with a CD. I'm a Jew. Well, that don't mean nothing now. I'm a Jew with stocks and bonds. And I am a successful Jew. Now, I know what it's like because I used to live with y'all. But my situation is different now. So I pray for you. I hope it works out. I'm in a different socio-economic political scenario. And if I go into my husband's room and he has not invited me and he does not hold out the scepter, I'm not willing to do that for y'all. Because I used to be a Jew. Now I'm Jew plus. What she did is what we do. We misdiagnose kingdom opportunity because we don't see it. All we see is this could have a negative effect on me. See, she forgot something. If it wasn't for the goodness of God, she wouldn't be there. See, she missed that. Along the way, she misunderstood. If it wasn't for the goodness of God, girl, you did not get here on your own. You got here the same way a turtle gets to the top of a fence. Somebody put it there. So she forgot all that, and having forgotten all that, she said, look, this is about me now. Not about y'all, it's about me. Y'all get it like I got it. Because right now it's about me, and I can't put myself in that position. She forgot, and it's easy to forget how you got where you are. It's easy to forget. Once you start living in a certain neighborhood and driving a certain vehicle and wearing certain clothes and getting a BA and an MBA and a doctorate, and it's easy to forget that if it were not for the grace of God, you would not be in the position you are now in. It's easy to forget that. And when you forget that, you're not so concerned about how other folk gonna make it. You wind up saying like her, in essence, I made it, why y'all not making it? We become self-absorbed. See, I'm clearly understand that I am not supposed to be here. I am not supposed to be on the street in this pulpit doing this. When I was raised my father was not a believer in those early years, and my home was in total disarray. I'm not supposed to be here.